here. The FEMA administrator is again in the state today for a fourth time. So the federal, state, and local governments are moving forward to assist the people of this state. And now it's going to be up to them to help us do that. And so we just want to make sure that this is not about a handout. This is about making sure that you let us know where you are out there and making sure that we can identify the places that we need to be focused on for our long-term recovery. Because, as the governor said, we'll be here until the last person is helped. Because ultimately, when the federal government's gone and the others are gone from helping us, the volunteers and everybody else, the people in this state, the local, and the citizens of this state will still be here, and we'll be a much better state. Thank you.
Any questions for anyone up here?
Mayor, I guess just looking around the room, I think this may be the first day since this all started there are no national media here, so I was wondering if you could talk about whether or not necessarily Tuscaloosa isn't in the mind of FEMA and federal officials, but it may be slipping from the rest of the country's conscience.
Well, and that's the natural evolution of news stories. At some point, we will become secondary, and then we will eventually vanish from the mind's eye of our nation. That's to be expected. But we have benefited by the amount of national attention we have gotten because it's allowed the world to focus on the needs of Tuscaloosa and Tuscaloosa County. And we have a job to do, and we're going to continue that job. We're going to continue to talk about the long journey that our citizens face. And my hope is that a year from now, the national media will return. And when they do, they'll see a community that is recovered, a community that is a beacon of hope for others who will have to go through this journey. And while I have this opportunity, I want to thank the state EMA. I know Judge McCollum joins me in saying that when you face a disaster of this magnitude, you cannot do this alone. We have made multiple requests to the state EMA, and every single request we have made has been granted and expedited. Art has been available. Brett, who he's assigned here to run our operations within the EOC, has been phenomenal. We couldn't have done this without the state EMA. And Art, I want you to know we thank you and the governor for what you've done.
Yes, sir.
Anyone address the need for housing? I was over at the Volunteer Center, and the director over there talked about I need 45 units of housing. They're starting to even approach absentee landlords or vacant property owners to see if they can get people in there. How do you fix that? Obviously, you talked about short-term and long-term housing, but how do you get those people who perhaps may not be maybe uninsured back into housing?
Well, again, the process starts 1-800-621-3362. Early on, Mayor, I even think it may have been the day after the storm that we were here. And one of the things that we did is that we told the mayor that immediately they needed to go out and start working with their local realtors and be able to identify where rentals and leases were available in the city. And the mayor and them got on that. Once they call that number and register and say that they do not have a place to stay, then we will immediately begin to place them in short-term housing. Now, that option doesn't always exist. We have some rural counties that do not have the option for rentals and leases. So we are right now focused and concentrated on putting short-term, temporary, safe housing in place. We are going to make sure that our short-term and our long-term housing options are as safe as possible for our citizens, and that we will only do that in such a way that we can ensure that they're as safe as possible.
I just have a small one. I'm going to steal from the sheriff. When did you say Crescent Ridge Road is getting back up? We've had a lot of questions about that. So just for your local.
Crescent Ridge Road will remain under the current traffic pattern until 7 o'clock in the morning, at which time it will be open for through traffic. We will maintain as a two-lane road with the outside lanes being used for utility repairs and other debris removal, other issues.
Back to the housing issue, if you could just maybe address, are there any figures at all around how many people might be displaced and in need of housing, and also where are they being sheltered now, and beyond
Well, let me say part of identification of that is people calling and registering. Now, we do know, and you can get more information from my office at the Alabama Emergency Management Agency, and my public information officer is Yazami August, and she can give you all of the details. But I do know that we, this morning, did have a couple of shelters in the state still open, and we were still sheltering a number of individuals. We will look at options of short-term housing first, as I said, in the places where we have available rentals or leases. In other areas, we will look at options such as base camps, and those are FEMA base camps, and other short-term options where we can do that. It may include being able to immediately go straight from a shelter situation to a more long-term by pulling FEMA housing units in there and being able to set those up. A lot of that depends on the debris. That's why the governor early this week went ahead and took the cost share problem off the table for the locals. He said, look, we know that y'all can't afford to pay it. The state's broke too, but quite frankly, if we don't move forward with debris removal, we're not going to be able to handle getting housing in there for the people. So he sent something out and said, we're going to pay the 25% of the local state match. We're going to pay it 100%. Now, he's asked the president to give Alabama 100% of that for the first 30 days. For that debris removal, he's asked for that. I know that the administrator's in the state today, and so is the deputy administrator. And the governor has been working with not only them, but Congressman Robert Adderholt and others in the congressional delegation, Representative Terry Sewell and others, to make sure, and the whole Alabama delegation has sent a letter in support of that. But, you know, the governor made a very courageous decision by saying, look, we've got to move forward past this, and so right now we're going to pick up, the state of Alabama is going to pick up the cost share on it and get it moving forward.
Mayor, I know that the state is taking over the debris, the Corps of Engineers taking over the debris and all that stuff. Do you have, if that's so important and critical for getting short, long-term housing, do you have an idea of how many trucks and all that stuff that's going on in the city right now?
Well, right now, we know of 3 contractors who are then issuing multiple contracts to subcontractors, so I don't have any particular numbers in front of you. Beginning Monday, the Corps of Engineers is going to be providing our office daily reports so that we can then provide you updates of how much debris is being moved. There are estimates out there of the amount of cubic yards within the city of Tuscaloosa, somewhere between 1 million, possibly 2 million cubic yards of debris. To put that in some perspective, remember after the April 15th tornado, we talked about 15,000 cubic yards of debris? That ought to give you some sense of the amount of damage we've sustained here in Tuscaloosa. What you will see in the coming days is more of the segregation of the debris piles, and then once that is segregated, then you will see them come back behind and do a sweep, and it's going to take multiple sweeps. And this is where I keep making that qualifier that this is going to be long. To finish this contract could take as long as a year or even longer, because you're talking about a massive amount of debris that's going to have to be removed. And as Mr. Faulkner said, that's important for us to get in there and get as much cleaned out as we can so that we can get back to having more permanent housing for those who have been displaced.
Mayor, can I follow up?
Yes, sir.
With that? Let me also say on the debris contract, you know, there's one other issue also. It's come up in talking about when people are going to go to work. As I sat and talked with Governor Bentley about the recommendation to turn on the direct federal assistance from the Corps of Engineers to provide oversight and management of the debris to the locals that wished for the Corps of Engineers to do that. One of the things that the governor made very clear from the start, and I know that he has said it almost daily, I know he has said it daily since then. He mentioned it in his speech Tuesday night, and I even talked with him again about it either last night or this morning, is that he wanted the assurance from the Corps of Engineers that they would absolutely make sure that Alabama companies and Alabama people were hired to do this work and that they were paid a fair wage. So as I talked with the Corps of Engineers, and I've talked with the company I believe that is managing that for the Corps of Engineers, Phillips and Jordan, they have assured us that they are going to work with the locals to get the names of the contractors that they want to use, and even in an effort to monitor that. This morning, we have started receiving reports daily that will be sent to the governor to outline the contractors that are being used throughout this state, where we can monitor and make sure that the commitment is being kept to put as many Alabamians to work and pay them a fair wage as can be done throughout this process.
Mr. Faulkner, do you have an estimate of how many people that were affected by the storm have actually called into it?
I don't. The numbers this morning, the last numbers that I saw were somewhere around 33,000. And that was either as of 7 last night, or I believe that was the last report I saw. I have not talked with my office today about that, but basing that on what we believe is the number of citizens that were impacted, we believe that that's sort of low. And I was on TV on most of the Birmingham stations yesterday morning, and on every single station I pushed that every time the TV, I wish they'd scroll it across the bottom of the screen or something to where people understand that it's not just about helping them. It's about helping their neighbors. Look, the governor has asked that we try to make sure that we get these flyers out with the registration number to be in churches tomorrow. That we're passing out to these people in the churches, that we get them in our banks, that we get them in our grocery stores, that we get them in our doctor's offices, everywhere that the general public is going to be, that we make sure that we get it out there. So if you want to know how to help your neighbor right now today, when you go up to ask them if you can help them clean up their yard, the first thing that you need to do is ask them how they're registered. If they haven't, then stop and take the time to do that. I was in one county earlier this week. I asked a lady if she had registered. She said she hadn't because she didn't have a phone. I flipped out my cell phone, put it on speed dial, handed her the phone, and let her do it. That's what we've got to do to help our people in this state be able to start the long process of recovery.
I've got a question on clarification about the debris removal. There's some confusion as to what is the responsibility of the homeowner. Some believe that the city's going to come in with bulldozers and push that stuff even off of private property where businesses was destroyed. What is the responsibility of the businessman and the homeowner?
Well, as part of Governor Bentley's request, he asked that the president also approve being able to remove the debris from private property. There are some discussions today, very high-level discussions between the state and the federal government and the local governments about exactly how that process could take place. But right now, it is the way the mayor has described it. And we understand the magnitude of the situation. But this is still America, and that property still belongs to them. If there's a way that we can legally go in there and help them get that debris off of there, we're going to look at a way, and the governor has asked us to work with the federal government that if we come up with a way to do that in Alabama, that the president will give us the authority that the federal government's going to pay for that. And so we're working that process. I can tell you that I have staff members that are right now trying to develop a plan to be able to come back to the local government and to be able to tell them how we could further assist them past this, because we understand that doing it this way in some areas is a very arduous process. So we are dealing with that right now.
Well, Mayor, a couple of days ago, you mentioned that I think FEMA was looking at 12 potential sites to put trailers or mobile homes or something as some form of temporary housing, either somewhere within the city or the county. Has that list either been narrowed or have any sites been selected?
Not to my knowledge.
Chief Marshall, Sheriff Sexton, there was no mention earlier of the cadaver dogs. Are you all still using those dogs?
Yes.
Yes, we are. Do you know how many bodies you all have found using those dogs over the course of the last 9 days?
Over the course of the last 9 days, we have